You're listening to The Pump Fake.
All right, everybody. Welcome into this live edition, almost emergency podcast of The Pump Fake. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. If you're watching on Twitter, be sure to comment. If you're listening as a podcast, leave a review, do all that fun podcast stuff. Yeah. Obviously, the big news of the day, the Dallas Cowboys, holy pissing ass, they actually did it. They trade Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers in exchange for a pair of first-round picks and defensive tackle Kenny Clark. And my God, I said a few days ago, when a player publicly requests a trade, they don't actually want traded. It's, a public power move to put more pressure on the organization to get what they want financially. I still firmly believe that. It just so happens we found perhaps an exception to that rule, and Micah Parsons actually gets out of Dallas and is now in Green Bay. So we'll talk about what it means for both sides in terms of what it does for Dallas, obviously what it does for Green Bay, and what this could mean long-term for the Cowboys, because this is going to be a very big ripple effect, not just for 2025, but 2026 and far beyond. This is a franchise-altering move that they just made. And, Jerry, I believe he's holding or held a press conference about the trade. And he said, with these 2 first-round picks, we can bring in a couple Pro Bowl players. And it's just more of what a lot of people, the vast majority of people have been saying, right? Where Jerry has seemingly just lost all reason, all just logical thinking when it comes to running the Cowboys, running a franchise, being an owner, being a general manager. When people get to a certain age, we restrict them from doing certain things, right? And it feels like the Cowboys, in their best interest, would be to take Jerry away from the wheel of this thing, because look at what this is going to do for them in 2025 alone. So after trading Micah Parsons, this is per Aaron Schatz of FTN Fantasy, the DVOA defensive projections for the Cowboys before the season, before the trade, they were sitting at 13th. Not great, not bad. Upper half of the league, you can work with that, especially with if the offense is as good as a lot of people are projecting it to be, you can work with that defense. After the trade, they fell to 17th. For Green Bay, this was a defense that had the 14th best DVOA projections. They jump up to 6th after the trade. And when you look at what Dallas has coming off the edge following this trade, it's Marshawn Nealon and Dante Fowler. Dante Fowler had a good year last year with Washington. It was a career resurgence year, really, with Dan Quinn. 1-year hiatus, and then goes back to Dallas. So he's going to be the number one guy. But you look elsewhere in that defense, man, like there is not a whole lot to be excited about. What's Trevon Diggs going to look like this year? Kyer Elam is projected to be their starting boundary cornerback. He got traded from Buffalo because of how poorly he played in the AFC Championship game. There's a lot of questions on that side of the ball. And the offense is more than likely going to be very good, which is, good for the offense. But when talking about the defense, there's a lot of holes there. And that's something when, you're going up against a Jaden Daniels, and you're going up against the Eagles, 4 times a year, losing a Micah Parsons, that could lose you an extra game, an extra 2 games. And so it feels like Dallas is almost in Cincinnati Bengals territory now, where, all right, it's going to be Dak, CD, and George Pickens. They're going to need to score a bunch a week, or this is going to be, a team that can't win. And even if they do score a bunch, if the defense doesn't hold up their end of the bargain, we saw how that worked for the Bengals last year. If they can't at least do a little bit on that side of the ball, it's going to be rough going. Now, in terms of what it means for Green Bay, this is a team that I picked to come out of the NFC before the trade. There's been a lot of weird conversations about Jordan Love this offseason. I don't think the jury's out on him. I think he's a solidified top 10 quarterback. And defensively, we talked a lot this offseason about, hey, if they get somebody else alongside Edger and Cooper, that front 7 is very good. And so now you got Edger and Cooper. You paid Rashawn Gary already. And now you insert Micah Parsons into this thing. They could very well be, one of the 5 best defenses in football. And offensively, we're seeing what Matthew Golden looks like in the offense. He's going to be their number 1 guy. We know that Josh Jacobs in the run game were very good last year. And so they're a very complimentary offense. Defensively now, they have a pair of stars, a proven all-pro, all-world edge rusher in Micah Parsons, a rising star in Edger and Cooper, a good guy in the middle in Rashawn Gary. This is a team. I already picked them to win the NFC North prior to the trade. We're talking now about, hey, they could be the 1 seed. And they can make a real run. If the road to the Super Bowl goes through Lambeau, there's not going to be many teams lining up to make that trip. So this is franchise altering for both teams. Because now if you're Dallas, let's say you missed the postseason again this year. What's that mean long-term for the offense? What's it mean long-term for Dak? I know you just paid him, but we've seen Atlanta. They paid Kirk Cousins big money, and he's already been benched for Michael Penix. Dak is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. But if they're doing moves like this, where, they're happy about getting a pair of first-round picks in return, who's to say if they go 8-9, miss the postseason, that Dak doesn't become expendable and they try to get a young quarterback and start all over themselves? There's a greater than 0 chance that Dak could be playing elsewhere in 2026. And, my good friend Derek Bell of Steelers Now brought up the fact, like, hey, if the Steelers don't want to try to bank on drafting a quarterback again and want to go the risk aversion route and trade for Dak Prescott, maybe they do that. Now, as a Steelers fan, I would prefer to, maybe see them draft a guy and try to go that route. But if the consolation prize is a top 10 quarterback in Dak Prescott for a little bit, I can live with that. Or, potentially Miami. It feels like that ship is sinking as we speak. And if Mike McDaniel's gone, if Tua Tagovailoa's gone, then maybe the Dolphins make a move. Rather than trying to rebuild, they kind of reload and bring in Dak Prescott to go along with Jalen Waddle. So this season, whatever happens after this trade for Dallas is going to have a large ripple effect. Now, let's look at the glass half full side of things like Jerry's trying to do right now. Let's say they do still win a good amount of games. Go 9-8, 10-7, get a wild card spot, maybe win a playoff game. And then you look at it from that perspective, like, all right, we got an extra first round pick for the next 2 years. If we hit on them, then, we didn't have to pay a guy $47 million a year on top of already paying Dak and CD. And okay, we have a little bit more wiggle room with these young stars on rookie contracts. So that's the glass half full side of things. But it certainly does feel like the glass half empty side of looking at it is the more likely outcome here. And I believe in Dak Prescott. Like I said, he's a top 10 quarterback. CeeDee Lamb's a top 5 receiver. They have a top 5 receiving duo, at least on paper, with CeeDee and George Pickens. I don't know what the run game is going to look like, but they're going to put up points, and they're going to put up a lot of big passing numbers. But if this ends up being very Cincinnati Bengals-ish, then they could be in a little bit of trouble, especially because in that division, yet it's not like they're in the NFC South, right? I mean, if they're playing the Saints and the Panthers, then yeah, we could have that conversation, but they're not. They're playing a Commanders team that was just in the NFC title game. They're playing an Eagles team that just won the Super Bowl. This is one of the hardest divisions in the NFL. And if you don't have a high-end edge rusher in those 4 games to get to Jaden Daniels, to get to Jalen Hurts, to help stop Saquon Barkley, that's a big advantage that you had that's now gone. And we're going to see what it looks like right away in a week when they go to Philadelphia with Marshawn Nealon and Dante Fowler as their top 2 edge rushers. We're going to see what it looks like pretty quickly. And look, like I said, offense is going to be pretty good. I have full faith in that. But defensively, there's a lot of questions, because who's the star on defense? Trevon Diggs, yes, he's, had good seasons in the past, but, with each year we get further away from that. What was it? That 10 interception year? It was 3-4 years ago. He's not in that conversation of best cornerback in the NFL. And he's getting older. He's had multiple injuries. He's probably your biggest star on defense. Deron Bland, you can make the argument, is number 2. But who else is there, man? There's not another big name on that side of the ball. Kenny Clark probably becomes their best defender right away. And Kenny Clark is a great player. And that'll help with the interior rushing and try to open up things for Nealon and Dante Fowler. But, we've seen, in their own division, the Giants had a great defensive line last year, and it didn't mean anything because they didn't have anything else on that side of the ball. So I'm very skeptical on what that's going to look like for the Cowboys this year. Very skeptical. And like I said, if you're watching this live on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment. We'll bring it up and answer your questions. If you want to leave super chats, you're able to do that as well. If you want to help support the channel, that would be lovely. But yes, Micah Parsons traded to Green Bay. And I'm incredibly excited for the Packers because this is a team, they're incredibly young. But you look at how well they've drafted and the moves that they've made to bring in veteran presence, a veteran presence on both sides of the ball. Josh Jacobs was their veteran last year, and he had a career resurgence. And now Micah Parsons, leading a young defense, that they have a very good balance of rising star youth and proven veteran talent. And with a guy in Jordan Love, who I believe is a top 10 quarterback in the league, and I picked them to get to the Super Bowl before this trade, I have the utmost faith in Green Bay to win the NFC North, get the 1 seed in the NFC, and make sure that the road to Super Bowl 60 goes through Lambeau. And hey, sign me up for an Eagles-Packers game, whether it be in the divisional round or in the conference championship at Lambeau. Sign me up for Commanders and Packers. Sign me up for Lions-Packers 3 if we get there. Now, Green Bay, I applaud organizations that take chances. But frankly speaking, when you look at what they gave up, I don't think this is a big risk. They traded 2 first-round picks, which I thought you'd have to give up much more than that. Obviously, Kenny Clark's a good player. But 2 ones in Kenny Clark, I mean, why weren't any other teams trying to outbid that? If I'm the Buffalo Bills, I would have given you 3 first-round picks and any player not named Josh Allen or Christian Benford. Now, take your pick. I'm so surprised that's all it took. And again, maybe that comes back to Jerry just being absolutely gone. But I'm very surprised that no other teams were willing to go above that. Frankly speaking, draft capital is the most overrated thing in the NFL. Incredibly overrated. They are unknown commodities. And the Rams showed a few years ago, hey, if you say to hell with draft picks and just go get proven stars, you can win a Super Bowl. So I'm surprised that no one else was willing to go above 2 first-round picks and a good player to land a franchise-altering talent like Micah Parsons. And some people might say, oh, well, Jarrett, that's why you're not a GM. Is it, though? Because we've seen that it works. I mean, Les Snead quite literally made the F them picks mantra famous and did a great job in building a Super Bowl winner out of it. And even when they went to the Super Bowl the first time and lost to New England, I mean, they still had Brandon Cooks that was brought in via trade. They still had guys on that team that, weren't drafted. But obviously the second time, I mean, they had brought in Odell. They traded for Matt Stafford. They traded for Jalen Ramsey. There are multiple ways to go about team building. And I think that far too many teams look at draft picks like they're these valuable, indispensable assets. And I like seeing teams are like, yeah, to hell with them. We'll go get this great player. Who the hell are you taking over the next 2 years that's going to be Micah Parsons? Probably nobody. And it just blows my mind that no other team, there's probably somebody else in the conversation, but I assume Dallas was holding it almost like an auction, or it's like, okay, we got Green Bay over here with 2 ones and Kenny Clark. Anybody else want to try to top that? No, going once, going twice. All right, Green Bay. Nobody else was willing to top that? I think draft capital is just violently overrated. If you can get a great player, get a great player. Obviously, there's a line to that. Would you have traded 8 first-round picks for Micah Parsons? No, probably not. But 3? Yeah. I sure as hell would have. Especially if you're a team like the Bills who suck at drafting at the top of the draft. Or if you're a team that's just been in a similar boat where, for the last few years, we've just had a lot of swings and misses come April. Or if you're another team that just feels like you're a move away, who was in a similar boat to Green Bay, who might be just a move away from going from, hey, good playoff team to, damn, put them in the Super Bowl bubble. Now, we can all celebrate that he didn't go to Kansas City. We can all applaud that. I will celebrate that he didn't go to Baltimore. We can celebrate that he didn't go to San Francisco, which I don't think it was ever going to happen because of the history there with Dallas and San Francisco, the playoff games that they've had in recent memory. And it's cool to see a team like Green Bay make this move. Because the last time they made a move for a star edge rusher was when they got Reggie White and they won the Super Bowl. So we'll see if similar results come from that. Okay, few comments here. Get to Kingston. Kingston says, do you think Tyreek Hill gets traded or another big trade is made this week? I do think Tyreek Hill gets traded. I'm doing a piece right now for my Substack. Go sign up for the Substack. You can sign up for free or you can do a paid tier, but it's at jbaileynfl.substack.com. Subscribe to the Snap where I'm doing a list of all my predictions for this season. And one of them is Tyreek Hill getting traded. So I do think it'll happen. You'll have to go subscribe. So when the piece comes out, you'll see where I think he's going. But I do think Tyreek Hill gets traded. That would be my guess. David says, I will never know why Jerry Jones went into the Hall of Fame before Pat Bowlen and Robert Kraft. It's a good question. He did win 3 Super Bowls in the 90s and did it his way. Like, I don't take anything away from what Jerry did immediately after buying the team. He got a lot of crap for it because of the way that he fired Tom Landry and immediately hired Jimmy Johnson. But immediately after doing so, they won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. So you can't fault him too much. Like, if he hadn't bought the team, none of that happened. So he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not taking that away from Jerry. But in the last 30 years, yeah, he's cared so much more about headlines and being a content farm than winning important games in January. I don't think that's disputable. And I'm going to write something about this, just my thoughts and whatnot. I'm trying to compartmentalize it and get it, to where I can put the right words into it in terms of what I write. But the Dallas Cowboys now are far more TikTok than they are football. They are just so much more about getting attention. When you're scrolling your phone up, Cowboys again, rather than being a team that focuses on winning games of importance. Say what you want about how annoying it is to always hear about the Chiefs. Outside of the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift stuff, like, Mahomes isn't doing a whole lot outside of football where you're just constantly like, oh my God, another Mahomes thing. Like, we don't see a ton of Mahomes outside of football. We don't see a ton of Andy Reid outside of football. We see nothing of Clark Hunt and the ownership group outside of football. Before Travis Kelce started dating Taylor Swift, the Chiefs were just annoying because they won all the time. Now it just so happens that they win all the time and their future Hall of Fame tight ends dating the most famous person on earth. But outside of that one specific thing, we don't hear a ton about the Chiefs if it doesn't pertain to football. But every year, there's something going on with the Cowboys. Last year, it was CD and Dak. This year, it was Micah. In the past, it was Zeke. Like, it's something constantly going on with Dallas. And I'm sure I'm missing multiple examples over the past few years, even if you want to go back as far as the Emmitt Smith stuff. But they've been far more about outside stories and contract disputes and trade demands and things of that nature, rather than anything that's happening on the football field. And Jerry himself said, like, hey, it's a 365-day-a-year soap opera. Headlines are good. He told you what he likes. Jerry loves this shit. And if people are talking about him, people are talking about the Cowboys, he's okay with it. They could go 5-12. People will talk about it because they went 5-12, and Jerry would be A-okay. Look, you can say that he cares about winning, that he wants to win a championship, but nothing that he's done over the past however long backs up those statements. So we'll see what happens with Dallas. But the Cowboys are far more of a content farm. The Dallas Cowboys are a TikTok house full of people who are famous for being famous and that care far more about views and clicks and people talking about them far more than winning. And it's not the players. I would bet good money Dak Prescott wants more than anything to win a Super Bowl. I would bet good money more than anything CeeDee Lamb wants to win a Super Bowl. But there's a reason why great players get traded or leave, and it's because of all the outside noise. It's all the nonsense that comes with being a Dallas Cowboy. Tank Lawrence left for Seattle. Good player. And even he was like, yeah, I don't know what the hell's happening over there, but glad I got away. So we shall see sooner rather than later, in a week's time, quite literally a week from like this very moment, 8:30 at the time of recording this on Thursday night. At this time in 7 days, the Cowboys and Eagles will have just kicked off the season. We are going to find out exactly what this team looks like. I don't expect them to win, but what if they do? Wouldn't that be something? Okay. Again, if you're watching this live on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment. Going to take a quick break and give a quick word from our sponsor for this video, Wine Express. This episode is brought to you by wineexpress.com. And if you're a wine guy like me, it is the absolute paradise for all wine drinkers. From personalized recommendation from wine concierges who help you find wines that you love and even help curate selections if you'd like. They also have access to hard to find wines and will give you early access to coveted deals. And they'll help you find wine tastings, both local and virtual. It is the ultimate wine drinkers paradise. And right now they'll give you early access to their Labor Day sale, which offers up to 80% off certain wines. Click the link in the description below for access to the Labor Day sale with up to 80% off certain wines at wineexpress.com. All right, guys. Micah Parsons, Green Bay Packer. And again, if you're watching this live on YouTube, live on Twitter, however it may be, you can leave a comment and we'll get it on screen. But like I said in the show already, I predicted that Green Bay would get to the Super Bowl before this trade. It was originally the Rams. Then we heard like all things about immortal chambers and stuff. I was like, I'm good. I don't think it's going to be the Rams. So I'm excited to see what Green Bay looks like. Who's Green Bay play week 1? I need to get that in front of me real quick. The Packers in week 1. They play the Lions week 1. They do play the Lions week 1. Yeah, that's the CBS game. By the way, what if we come to where Packers-Lions isn't America's game of the week on Fox and it's on CBS? Let's bring back when all NFC games were on Fox, all AFC games were on CBS when we were a proper country. What are we doing? But very excited now. We're going to find out very quickly on both ends of this spectrum. Hey, the Packers facing their current biggest rivals in Detroit, their biggest threats to winning the division, week 1. Dallas, okay, you don't have Micah Parsons anymore. You're playing the defending Super Bowl champion who happens to be in your division. Show us what you got. Very excited to see what this week brings, or next week, but it's going to be very fun. So, again, if you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Go and watch the episode of Believe in Steelers with me and Dave Damashek, going game by game if you're a Steelers guy. I also talked to my buddy Jake Arthur, who covers the Indianapolis Colts for Sports Illustrated, talking about the situation in Indianapolis with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. He gave me his insight on that whole situation, so you can go check all of that out on the channel as well as wherever you get the Pump Fake and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Again, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Please like this video, subscribe to all that YouTube stuff. I know you get tired of hearing all of your YouTube people say that, but it does help out the channel a good bit. I appreciate everybody again for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Pump Fake.